going through it verse by verse. This is, I think, verse 7. I'm pretty sure we're on verse, oh, good. Oh, we're doing recording. We're on verse 7 from Kaz Tanahashi's translation. In the effort to always make this relevant and real, so we don't just think we're floating around in dewdrops and clouds, which of course we are, but we're in this very, very beautiful and crazy world. I don't know how many of you get Heather Cox Richardson's Letter from an American. If you have any political inclination at all, and probably if you were going to read, can the sound be louder? Is that better? I just turned me up. Does that make a difference? No? Debbie's going to check. Gretchen's not here today, so this is our first run on our own.
Is that better?
Is that
I can hear you. I can hear you well.
Better. Okay.
Okay.
Closer to me? Okay.
And I turned it up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Anyway, she does wonderful, she's an historian, and she's very grounded, and I just, her perspective always helps me see what's happening in a bigger perspective. So I suppose in a certain way that's Genjo Koan is. She's not religious or spiritual, but she just always puts things in a bigger context. So this morning was, of course, everybody's lying and everybody thinks everybody else is lying and who's telling the truth and what is reality anyway, and so this, I copied this little paragraph. She says, way back in 2004, an advisor to George W. Bush told journalist Ron Susskind that people like Susskind were, quote, in reality-based community. They believed people could find solutions based on their observations and careful study of discernible reality. Now, Buddhism doesn't quite say that. It says you're always going to miss something, but it would fundamentally say let's just start with what's in front of you. That there are facts and there is science, and anyway, all those things we know. But the aide continued. Such a worldview was now obsolete. That's not the way the world really works anymore. We are an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. Which is actually the truth. I mean, we are all creating our own reality and co-creating reality all the time, but hopefully it's out of a deeper ground of wisdom, not because we're creating false realities. I mean, they're all sort of, every reality is an illusion, but let's stay as close to the truth and facts as we can. He said, while you're studying that reality, judiciously as you will, we'll act again, creating other new realities which you can study too. And that's how things will sort out. We're history's actors, and you, all of you, will be left to study what we do. In other words, one group of people thinks that they can impose their reality if they say it loud enough and hard enough on the rest of the world, which is kind of what's happening now. Has happened, but it's so revealed right now. So what is reality? And how do we act? And are we all just free agents doing whatever the little self wants in concert with other selves? Dogen says in the Genjo Koan, study the self. But study the self in the deepest sense all the way through. Study our ancient twisted karma of greed, hate, and delusion. Keep looking. Do it with other good people who want to keep looking. And be honest and wake up so that we can bring a world of love and connection and interconnection. Because that's what we're all doing, is co-creating this reality that's already here, actually. That's the truth of it. Is love, whatever, in the biggest sense, wholeness, the full moon, is already here. It's full of everything, it's empty of everything. The question is, how do we each be responsible and responsive to that, as opposed to whatever is being whispered in our ear by our own delusion or the delusion of the world. So I found Gregory Wonderwheel, who is a local translator, scholar, and translator in Sebastopol. He has a new translation for the opening paragraph of the Genjo Koan, which I'm going to read it to you. I'm fascinated, I've said this before, by different translations, because each person does have their own Dharma position. So each person is going to translate, of course, from their own experience and their own practice experience, their own study experience, and then keep coming back, because a good translator or a good practitioner will always come back to the deepest Dharma and turn and be turned. But it's fun to see how it's like, of course, Susan's going to express herself as Susan, and Sally as Sally, and each one of us enacting the Genjo Koan will be exactly through who we are. And as a practitioner, our joyful responsibility is to keep asking, what's the deepest truth? How can I really, how can I keep expressing and living and being the deepest truth that will benefit all beings? Because that's what's going on. Otherwise, it's just all the ego, right? Like, oh, I got that. Oh, you didn't get that. Oh, anyway. So at the time the Buddha Dharma of the various Dharma things is attained, namely there is delusion and enlightenment, there is cultivation and practice, there is birth, there is death, there are the various Buddhas, and there are the multitudes of beings. At the time that the natural position of oneself is together with the 10,000 things, there is no bewilderment. There is no satori, there are no various Buddhas, there is no multitude of beings, there is no birth, and there is no extinction. From the beginning, the way of the Buddha. Okay, this is what I want to bring forward. Although he's got other great, I've never heard anybody use the word bewilderment before. Don't you often feel bewildered? The natural position of oneself is the Dharma position. Your Dharma position within the 100,000, 10 million things of everything. Each thing, each violet, each bird, each insect. Okay, but from the beginning of the way, the Buddha is located. Are you ready for this? In the hot water. It's located in hot waters, where we try to jump out from abundance and scarcity. So there is birth and extinction, there is delusion and enlightenment, there are beings and Buddhas. Nevertheless, it is like this for everyone, whether or not we aim to question. The flowers are loved and pitied in the dirt, and the grasses are rejected and disliked in bearing ripening seeds. So here's his little commentary. What people will notice from this translation compared to the usual translations is the phrase, from the beginning of the way, the Buddha is located in the hot water, where we try to jump out from abundance and scarcity. Most translators ignore the term hot water and talk about leaping clear of abundance and scarcity, or leaping clear of the one and the many, as if this is the Buddha way. That is a great error in reading Dogen. Dogen is saying that the Buddha way is found exactly in the hot water of our life, right here as it is. In the just this. Not trying to leap out of duality. To resolve duality is not to leap out of duality, but to live in the hot water, where we can see through the illusion of duality and see the flowers and grasses just as they are, even when we have feelings about them. So of course we have feelings about things, like, dislike. I like my feelings about how I think you take care of all beings, and someone from another political party has feelings about that too, and everything else. But the question isn't either I'm not going to leap over, I'm not going to pretend it's not there, I'm not going to think there's some place I'm going to get where all this is going to quit. My vow The Buddha way is, oh, right here in the hot water. So how do you do that? Sounds a little uncomfortable, but I also know I like hot springs. I like being in hot water. Just sometimes you don't want too hot water, right? Or you want the perfect hot water. You know? I hope you're getting exactly the water that you need and the world needs, and we'll all just find our way together. So I'm going to verse 7. I think I'll just read the phrases, say a little commentary, and then I have commentary by Suzuki Roshi from Dogen's Genjo Koan. I have commentary from Okamura Sensei from Realizing Genjo Koan. Enlightenment. Begin with, what is enlightenment? I have never understood or even been attracted to that word. But what is being pointed at? So often in Buddhism, the symbol of enlightenment is the full moon. That I can sort of get. It's whole, it's luminous, it's not divided, but we also know that there's many phases of the moon, but one phase of the moon isn't better or worse and doesn't negate the other. The full moon is always there, even when you can't see any moon. It's always here. So enlightenment is like the moon reflected on the water. The water does not get wet, nor is the water broken. Although its light is wide and great, the moon is reflected even in a puddle an inch wide. We know this, right? If you study deeply, we know this. In every drop of our lives, in every moment of our life, the moon of enlightenment is completely reflected. It's here. In every moment. Not partly or imperfectly, but perfectly and completely in each little drop of our life, in each breath. Enlightenment does not divide you. Just as the moon does not break the water, it cannot hinder enlightenment, just as a drop of water does not hinder the moon in the sky. You can't do anything to sully the moon. No matter how dumb you are, or think whatever you do. I was talking to somebody yesterday, maybe you won't think this is funny. We thought it was funny at the time. She was talking about how life was stupid. And I said, sometimes I find myself, that's a word I've been using, it slips out of me, it's like stupid. And then when I said it, I realized it's like the way a little kid would say something. It's like stupid, it's just stupid. How could you be so stupid? Well, Dogen's teachings would say, no matter how stupid you think it is or it isn't, how could it simultaneously be perfect, whole, and complete? That's what we study. That's the mystery of it. And we study the part of us that gets attached, the 2-year-old or the 3-year-old that wants, or however old it is. It feels to me when I say it, I'm pretty regressed, that wants to stomp my foot about how this world is just like stupid. That's called suffering. The cause of suffering is that we have a self, and we have a self that has opinions about things. And we see people getting hurt, and we don't want them to get hurt. But the more we mature and deepen, we know that stomping our feet and saying stupid, the next thing is take a breath. Okay, come back. What's here right now? And what's the appropriate response? Because you can't break the wholeness, it won't make you special, there's nothing you can attain, it's just right here. It's so simple. The depth of the drop is the height of the moon. Each reflection, however long or short its duration, manifests the vastness of the dewdrop and realizes the limitlessness of the moonlight in the sky. every drop of our life is vast. Every drop of time of our life is birth and death in its completion. Birth, death. Birth, death. It is awakening, it's this moment, it's eternity. That's this moment. I mean, like, how cool is that? Stupid. Okay, so it's our responsibility, a bodhisattva responsibility, and a bodhisattva is nobody other than somebody. Could I read something, the last statement? I don't remember. Every drop of our life is vast. This is it. And it's our responsibility to realize this, that our life and every moment and every thought is creating and co-creating the world. And we can choose suffering, or it's choosing us, but how we respond, that's practice. And to realize that what you choose affects me, and what I choose affects you and people all over the globe, and past and present and future. It's like, how cool and wondrous and mysterious. You can't get it. And I think it's why we chop the moon up and try to make it simple. But you know, you can't chop the moon up. You can notice the different phases. So the good news is the more that we notice that we're chopping things up, we know that it's suffering, and it just motivates us. It wants us to wake up more, because we do know the wondrous beauty of the moon and all of its phases. And it does keep turning and moving, and always has, and maybe hopefully always will in some form or another. So let me read you something about what Okumura Sensei says about this. He gives, everything okay?
Yes.
Okay. He gives a waka poem. It's a traditional poetic form using a fixed number of syllables. It's entitled Impermanence. What is this world like? As a waterfowl shakes its bill, on each drop of water, the moon is reflected. He says a waterfowl dives deep into a pond, surfaces and shakes its bill, and the tiny drops of water from the bird's bill scatter in the air and return to the surface of the pond. The moon is reflected in each and every drop, and even though each drop exists only for a second, even though each drop exists even for less than a second, our lives are like this, like moonlight reflected on a drop of dew. When we think about ourselves in relation to absolute reality, we see that we are as tiny and transitory as a dewdrop. Yet the vast, boundless, eternal moonlight reflects on each and every drop of life. This is a beautiful expression of our lives. It embodies the intersections of impermanence and eternity, individuality, and universality. Just this moment. Within this short poem, I think the essential point of Mahayana Buddhist teachings is vividly expressed. This is it. What is the world like? As a waterfowl shakes its bill, on each drop of water, the moon is reflected. Study this. In Genjo Koan, Dogen tells us that we must see that our lives are limited and brief. Yet we must awaken to the vast and eternal moonlight of the Buddha's wisdom and compassion reflecting in them. As bodhisattvas, We must see how limited and deluded we are and how short our lives. I'm going to remind us of the beautiful phrase that is in Genjo Koan, where Dogen doesn't say a Buddha isn't deluded. What a Buddha is someone who knows they're deluded, who studies delusion completely all the way through. I think that's so deeply reassuring. Otherwise, we just get all tossed up and tangled and deluded, and then we're in a war over who's the right and who's the wrong, and go deeper. It's the moon reflected in each dewdrop, the wonder and the mystery and the impermanence. We must recognize that the path we walk is a long one, and in our practice we must investigate the height and the vastness of the moon. Yet when we deeply question or search this length and shortness, greatness and smallness, we discover that all of these aspects of our lives perfectly penetrate one another. Eternity is reflected in impermanence, and the vast moonlight penetrates the tiny drop of water. Though we are tiny, impermanent, and ego-centered, stupid, no, as individuals, our lives are simultaneously, immeasurably deep and boundless. The depth of our lives is the same as the height of the moon. And in our practice, we must investigate how high and vast the moon is and how deep and subtle the reality of our lives. Subtle, intimate, subtle, close. These are beautiful. Especially in a world that can feel so, the words can get so harsh these days. Subtle. Prajna. We must endlessly go ever higher and deeper in our practice so we can express the height and depth of the moon in all of our activities. That is saving all beings. That is transforming and being transformed by the suffering of our times and how people are talking and not talking to each other, and the truths and the lies and subtle. Come back. Don't miss it. Okay, just a little from Suzuki Roshi. Even though you think your practice isn't good enough, the moon itself is your practice. And you cannot be broken. You are just as you are. And when you are as you are through and through, that is enlightenment. That is love. That is the full moon. The kind of wonderful composure, the absolute meaning of our lives, will be realized when we reach this understanding. There is no more problem of big or small. Each moment of our life is an expression of conditionality of one unconditioned being. It is not a matter of long or short. It is beyond comparison. What is this world? It is silly to try and find out something just in our conscious world. You cannot figure this out with your linear conscious mind. Study, please study. And then show up in your body, in your breath. There is no particular life for us. We are just expressing our unconditioned being, which is universal to everyone. Live this life all the way through. This is our life, no other life. Things will still happen to you, even though you attain enlightenment or are getting wiser. no matter what. The same water and moon is here. This is the ground. The moon is reflected even in a puddle an inch wide. The whole moon and the whole sky are reflected in a drop of dew in the grass. Enlightenment, wisdom, compassion does not destroy the mind or help the mind. The mind does not hinder enlightenment, just as a drop of dew does not hinder the moon in the sky. The depth of the drop is the height of the moon. Because you compare something to something else, you have this kind of misunderstanding or confusion. This kind of understanding and living is beyond thinking. You can explain it with logic, like we're trying to do, but the explanation will not be perfect. It's why Zen, saying the other, I think part of the beauty of Zen, which is maybe different than the mindfulness movement, which is very is Zen. Someone said the other day, maybe Zen is more like graduate school in a certain way. Is sort of like other traditions tell you do this and then do this and then do this and then do this. Zen just says, just sit. And then it gives you this Dharma and this Dogen and moon and dewdrops and what in the world, and it keeps asking you to go beyond, and often the only way to express it is poetry gets the closest to it, because it's a different kind of language, or art, or flower arranging, or walking mindfully in the garden, or zazen, beautiful, or bowing when you come in the door. Just paying attention to what's in front of you with your whole body and your whole heart and your whole mind, so that we can more and more just be what we already are and what's already here. There's no place to get to. That goes really, really counter to our human carrying the self forward, right? I love to do this. Maybe try it again. Carry yourself forward. Now just take a breath and feel the ground under you. Feel the beautiful uplift of your spine and the bird song. Let your awareness move from thinking mind to just open awareness. Thoughts coming and going. It's all right here, and there's nothing here, and everything is here, and it's perfect, and it could use a little improvement. You begin to realize the genius of Suzuki Roshi, of how much he took these teachings and he made them so simple. So why don't we do that right now? 15 minutes, let's do groups of 3. Each person form